Okay, so we already know how to do this, we think, right? Let's try it. So we looked at this really quick before. So let's go to our mixer window. So we're going to go to View, Mixer. Now we see a whole bunch of stuff, right? Before we only saw piano. So I'm going to pull this window a little bit bigger so we can see everything. And let's see flute. Okay, so our first instrument is called flute, and the sound we're using is flute. Okay, I can dig through here and find other things if I want to try a different sound. For example, a shakuhachi is kind of like a wooden flute. Maybe that's the sound I'm looking for. All told, when I made this staff as a flute, MuseScore assigned it to a flute sound. So that's pretty good. I can adjust the volume of it here. I can turn it up or down in the mix. Panning means the kind of left and right balance of it. Reverb, if you want something to sound a little more realistic, sometimes reverb helps. And chorus, kind of the same thing. Giving it a little bit of chorus can help it make it sound a little more realistic. So that one's good. Trumpet, same deal. That looks good. Now, you'll notice I have two trumpets here. This is interesting, right? Because I only have one trumpet in my score. What's happening here is it's assigning two different sounds for the trumpet depending on what the trumpet is doing. So when I just say trumpet and start putting in notes, it's going to use this sound of the trumpet. When I tell it it's a muted trumpet, if I say this trumpet has a mute on it, it's going to use a separate sound. And it doesn't seem to have a muted trumpet sound in its library, so it's using a bassoon, which if we think about that for a minute, I guess that's kind of not a terrible idea. A really high bassoon does kind of sound like a muted trumpet, now that I think about it. Sure. So that could work. If I had another sound of a muted trumpet, I would want to load it in there. Okay? So depending on what I've told the trumpet to do in the score, it's going to switch between these. Now again, I'm going to add just a touch of reverb and a touch of chorus to both of these. Okay, vibraphone, set to a vibraphone. Xylophone, set to a xylophone. That's great. Let's give them a little bit of reverb, a little bit of chorus. Neat. Okay, cello has three sounds, right? Because if I've told the cello to just play normal, then it's going to just play normal. And it's going to use a cello sound. But if I've told it to be pizzicato, that's really short, it has a separate sound for pizzicato string section. Okay, so it's going to switch to a pizzicato sound. If I've told it to do tremolo, that's if it's like going back and forth really fast, like a roll on a drum kind of, then it's going to use a tremolo sound. So that's good. It picked three different sounds, and MuseScore is going to know when to switch between those for me. Okay, so I can adjust these. You don't have to turn up reverb and chorus. I just kind of like to. Makes it sound a little bit nicer. Don't turn it up too high, though. Okay, so that's where I can change these sounds. If I want, my xylophone to sound like a glockenspiel, I can do that, right? A glockenspiel is like a metal xylophone, kind of. I can also mute in here, so turn them off, keep them from making any sound at all. We can do that. We can solo it. Solo means mute all the other instruments and only play this instrument. Or I can set it to be a drum set, in which case I have a variety of drum set sounds to choose from here. If I don't want that, so I'm going to unclick drum set, and then it went back to a default here. So I need to go back and find vibes. There it is. Okay, so but this window, this mixer window, is where you're going to control all of your instrument sounds. Okay, so we've made our own score. We assigned sounds. We made brackets. We made it look very professional looking score. Next, let's take a step back and talk about working with something from the MuseScore library like we saw when we initially set up this file.